Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamne, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shinyavari, Shatadeshatarine, Om Vishnu Padaya, Jaya Simha Rupine, Shri Srimad Bhakti Pragyan, Keshavet Namine, Bhakti Macha Charitraya, Svashitaram Chapaline, Jiva Dukhe Siddhartaya, Shinam Premandayane, Kodishaya Vigrahaya, Krishna Kamaika Charine, Rupanuga Vivaraya, Vinodeki Swarupine, Prabhupadantarangaya, Sarva Sadguna Sharine, Maya Vadat Moganaya, Vedantartavade Namaha, Namo Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Krishnaya Bhutare, Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namine, Shri Varshavanavi Devi, Dayataya Kripabde, Krishna Sambandha Vijnana, Dayane Prabhave Namaha, Madhurjvane Premaja, Shri Upanuga Bhaktida, Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti, Vigrahaya Namostute, Namaste Gauravani, Shri Murti Dinatarine, Rupanuga Virudapasadanta, Dvantaharine, Namo Gaurakishoraya, Sakshan Vairagya Murtaye, Vipralambara Sambode, Padambujayate Namaha, Namo Bhaktivinodaya, Satchidananda Namine, Gaura Shakti Swarupaya, Rupanuga Virayate, Gurevya Bhava Bhumestvam, Nirjesta Sajjana Priyaha, Vaishnava Savabhoma Shri, Jagannataya Te Namaha, Vanchakalpatanubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Namo Mahavadanyaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya, Namne Gauratvishe Namaha, He Krishna Karuna Sindho, Dinabandho Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Shridhara Kanta Namostute, Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanu Sute Devi, Pranamami Hari Priye, Jayatam Tusunato Pangur, Mama Manda Mategati, Matsava Swaparambo Joshi Radha Madana Mohano, Divya Brindaranya Kabudrimadha, Shri Maratnagara Simhasanashno, Shri Shri Radha Shri Govinda Devo, Preshtali Bisevmanos Madami, Shri Marasara Sarami, Vamshivata Tashtitaha, Karshan Venu Swane Gopin, Gopinata Shri Estuna, Vrindai Tulasi Devyaye, Priyaye Keshavasya Cha, Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi, Satyavate Namo Namaha, Panchatatvatmakam Krishnam, Bhaktanupasarupakam, Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam, Namami Bhakti Shaktikam, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasani Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Page 32. Gurudev, Kripa Bindu Diya Koro Edase, Trinapekshati Hina, Sakala Sahane, Boladiya Koro, Nichamane Sprihahina, Gurudev, Kripa Bindu Diya Koro Edyase, Trinapekshati-hina Sakala samana kalite shakati Dehonata yata jata Tabeto gaibo Harinama suke Aparadha behata Gurudev Kripa bindu niya Koroe dase Trinapekshati-hina Kabehe no kripa Labhiya he jana Knitata hoi benata Shakti buddhina Hamiyati hridin Shakti buddhina Hamiyati din Koramare atma sahata Koramare atma sahata Gurudev Kripa bindu diya Koroe dyase Trinapekshati-hina Yogyata vichare Kichunahi pai Tomara karuna sara Karuna nahuile Kandiya kandiya Karuna nahuile Kandiya kandiya Prananara ki bohara Prananara ki bohara Gurudev Kripa bindu diya Koroe dyase Trinapekshati-hina Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. All right. Page 23. Krishna hoite jato mukha. Krishna hoite jato mukha. Oya Krishna sevan mukha. Brahma hoite Narada mohati. Narada hoite Vyasa. Madhvaka e Vyasa dasa. Kahe Vyasa dasa. Purna pragna padmana bhagavati Nihari madhava vamshe Akshobhya padamahamse Shishaboniyangi garakore Akshobhyera shesha jaya Kirtaname parichaya Taradase gyana sindhu tore Taha hoite doya nidhi Taradasya vidya nidhi Rajendra hoiro Taha hoite Tahara kinkara jaya Dhamaname parichaya Tada dase Parampara jana paramahate Jaya dhamma dyase kyati Shri Purushottama jati Tahoite Brahmanya Tirta Suri Vyasatirtha Tara Daksha Lakshmi Pati Vyasadasa Tahoite Madhavinda Puri Madhavendra Puri Vada Shisha Vada Shishvada Nityananda Shri Advaita Vibhu Ishvara Puri Kedanya Kaurilanya Shri Chaitanya Jagaguru Gaura Mahaprabhu Mahaprabhu Shri Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahiyanya Rupanuga Janira Jivana Vishwambara Priyankara Shri Swarupa Damodara Shri Goswami Rupa Sanatana Rupa Priya Mahajana Jiva Raghunatana Janapriya Kavi Krishna Dasa Krishna Dasa Priya Vadanara Tama Seva Pada Janapada Vishwanatha Asha Vishwanatha Bhatta Sata Baladeva Jagannatha Janapriya Shri Bhakti Vinoda Mahabhagavata Vada Shri Godakishora Vada Haribajanete Jaramoda Shiva Shaba Navi Vada Sada Sevya Seva Pada Tahara Daita Dasanama Prabhupada Antaranga Shri Swarupa Rupanuga Shri Keshavam Bhakti Pragyana Gaudiya Vedanta Veta Maya Varo Tamohanta Gauravani Prachara Chadama Pracharita Gauravani Bhakti Vedanta Swami Purnita Prabhupada Kama Kesha Priya Mahajana Vamanana Dayanhana Gauravani Tade Pranadana Esabhari Jana Gaurangera Nija Jana Tadera Chiste Morakama Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Parampara Guru Parampara Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Page 36. Vrindavana Vasi Jato Vaishnavera Gana Pratame Vandana Kori Sabara Charana Nilachala Vasiyato Mahaprabhu Gana Bhamite Pariya Vando Sabara Charana Naradi Pavasiyato Mahaprabhu Bhakta Sabara Charana Vando Huyanurakta Mahaprabhu Bhakta Yato Gaudadeshe Stiti Sabara Charana Vando Kariya Pranati Jedeshe Baise Gaurangera Gana Urvabahu Kori Vando Sabara Charana Hoyachena Hoyibena Prabhuyato Dasa Sabara Charana Vando Dante Kori Gasha Brahmanda Torite Shakti Dare Jane Jane Evera Purane Guna Gaya Jebashune Mahaprabhu Gana Sabapati Tapavana Tahi Lobe Mui Papido Inusharana Vandana Korite Mui Kata Shakti Dori Tamo buddhi doshe mui damba matra kori. Tatapi mukhera bhagya manera ulasa. Dokshakshami moandame koro nija dasa. Sava vancha siddhi hoye yama bandha chute. Jagante durlabha hoye prem dana lute. Manera vasana puna. Hachirate hoya. Devaki nandana dasa. Elo bekoya jayo. Vaishnav Thakur 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 jayo. Vaishnav Thakur. Vaishnav Thakur jayo. Vaishnav Thakur. Page 200. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Vande Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jive Doya Kori Swarprashad Swiyandama Sahavatari Atyanta Durlabha Prema Gauri Bharidana Shikaya Sharanagati Bhakate Rera Prana Danya Atmani Vedana Gomtrip Vivadana Avashadakshibhe Krishna Vishvasapalana Bhakti Anukula Matra Kayera Svikara Bhakti Pratikula Bhava Vajanangikara Sharanga Sharanagati Hoi Bejahara Dahara Pratana Shune Shinanda Kumara Rupasana Tana Pade Dante Trina Kodi Bhakati Vinoda Pade Dupada Dori Kandiya Kandiya Bole Hamita Dama Shikaye Sharanagati Karohe Utama Jaya Swarpanshada Jaya Gaurahari Swarpanshada Jaya Gaurahari Jaya Swarpanshada Jaya Gaurahari Swarpanshada Jaya Gaurahari Radhe, page 87. I'm just going to read. I want to read the English first so I know what I'm singing. Alas, alas, when will the two brothers Gaur-Nitai bestow their abundant mercy upon this most fallen person and show themselves to him? By the power of their mercy, I shall see the transcendental splendor of Braj and Navadvip. I shall behold the enchanting Ananda Sukata Kunj with greedy eyes. Near to Ananda Sukata Kunj is Sri Lalita Kund, surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of bejeweled sitting places where Sri Sri Radhakrishna expand the incessant revelry of their pastimes. All their sakis are there to assist in these pastimes, realizing the joy of rendering various kinds of seva. This maidservant is also present, running here and there to carry out her duties on the order of her Saki. Stringing a garland of malati flowers, I shall bring it and place it in the hands of my Saki. She will place it around the necks of Shri Shri Radhakrishna, and I shall dance filled with ecstasy. Ha ha kabe goranitai. Ha ha kabe goranitai. Ha ha kabe goranitai. Ha ha kabe goranitai. Epatita jane urukripa kori. Epatita jane urukripa kori. Teki adi betu bai. Tekadi beduti bai. Du kripa bon. Sorry. Can you wait one moment on that? Because I need to forget something. Du kripa bale navadvipa dame. Du kripa bale navadvipa dame. Deki bovrajera shobha. Deki bovrajera shobha. Ananda Sukada Kunja Manohara. Dasukada Kunja Manohara. Heri Bonayana Noba. Heri Bonayana Noba. Deki Bovrajera Shobha. Deki Bovrajera Shobha. Takanarakat taharanikate Shilalita Kunda. Shilalita Kunda. Ratna Vedikato Shata. Ratna Vedikato Sata. Jatara Krishna Lila Vistariya. Radha Krishna Lila Vistariya Viharena Virata Radha Vedika Toshata Jata Radha Krishna Lila Vistariya Viharena Virata Radha Vedika Toshata Saki Gana Jata Lilana Sahaya. Saki Gana Jata Lilana Sahaya. Nare Seva Sukapaya. Nana Seva Sukapaya. I'm gonna go back to just, I'm not gonna do the whole thing where we'll just do. You know how in that last one we went, Hari Bonayana, Loba, Dekido, Vagar Shuba, and then went back to Nandasukla Kunj? It was kind of confusing. I'm just going to stick to not doing that. Okay. Ida Sitataya Sakira Agnate. Ida Sitataya Sakira Agnate. Karayeti. Karyeti utidaya. Karyeti utidaya. Nana seva sukapaya. Nana seva sukapaya. Mala tera mala gatiyanibo. Mala tera mala gatiyanibo. Tibota besaki kare. Tibota besaki kare. Radha Krishna Gale Saki Puraibe. Radha Krishna Gale Saki Puraibe. Nachaibo Annabare. Nachibo Ananda Bare. Devota Besaki Kare. Devota Besaki Kare. Ha ha kabe gauranitai. Ha ha kabe gauranitai. Jayo Sachinandan Jayo Gaurahari. Sachinandan Jaya Gaurahari. Jayo Sachinandan Jaya Gaurahari. Sachinandan Jaya Gaura Hari. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Okay, let me read that one in English first, and now page 158.
This one's a little easier, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Maybe not. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari. Jaya Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari. Jaya Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari. Jaya Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari. Jaya Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha, Jaya Giri Varadari, Jaya Giri Varadari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha, Jaya Giri Varadari, Jaya Giri Varadari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yamunatira Vanachari, Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha, Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe, Jaya Dhamma Radha Radha, Madhava Radha, Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe, Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe. Does anybody know if Gurudev is giving class this morning?
Vasanti said yes.
Okay. Do you want to lead Maha Mantra?
Unless Gary wants to do it.
You?
He said it.
I learned from like the Radha Krishna album. It's okay if I just sing it like that.
Yeah, please.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda
Jaya
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gora Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jaya Jaya Guru Dev.
Be good, Dakota.
Quite nervous.
What time are you leaving tomorrow?
3-ish.
Okay.
Oh, that's the time.
We have, well, the plane leaves at 3,
Oh, okay.
so,
So what did you take on?
yeah, probably at 1.
Yeah, we can talk.
Yeah, like one.
You have the same plate?
Yeah, same flight, yeah. I doubt it. It's possible. I won't pay an extra $27 to get my seat.
I think it's free if you get it back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
Ajnanam Timihundasya Jnanam Janasalakaya Chakshuramitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Guru Guru Charaya Radhikaya Tudalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadavaktaya Namo Yam Pravajantam Manupetamapeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahakataruvajuhava Putri Titam Taya Taravo Banedus Tam Savapu Taridayam Nanatos Bhaktya Abhuladalakshi Chiptasya Kamadi Tarangamadye Kripamaitum Sharanam Prapadyam Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tavaivasmi Najivami Tam Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tam Nayamam Charanantike Kripayati Yadi Radha Vadita Sheshabada Kema Paravashishtam Pushti Maryadayorme Yadi Vadati Chakinchit Smira Soditashi Dvijavaramani Pamtya Mukti Shuktya Tadakim Shama Sundara Shikanda Shekara Smira Samarali Manoha Radhikara Sikama Kripanidhe Swapriya Charana Kinkari Kuru Prananata Vishabhanu Nandini Srimukhabjara Salola Satapada Radhika Paditale Vitastiti Tam Bhajame Rasikendra Shekhar Sambadaya Dashine Trinam Vibho Partaye Brajamahendra Nandana Astu Mohantavati Ballabha Janma Jamani Madhiswari Priya. First I offer my unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful Diksha Gurudev, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Astodra Sat Shishimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, and the same unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful Shiksha Gurudev, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Astodra Sat Shishimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and Srila Bhakti began Padati Goswami Maharaj, to our grandfather gurus, Shishimad Bhakti Vedanta, Bhakti Pragan Keshava Goswami Maharaj, and Shishimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, to all of his divine associates and to all the assembled devotees. And the assembled devotees, Diksha Gurus, are my Shiksha Gurus, Shishimad Bhakti Vedanta Madhav Maharaj, Shishimad Bhakti Vedanta Ban Maharaj, and Shishimad Bhakti Vedanta Siddhanti Maharaj. Well, we were just spent about 7 days in Navadvip. And now, somehow or other, we ended up in Dwarka. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 11. So, he left Hastinapur after Maharaj Yudhisthira and brothers won the Battle of Kurukshetra. And then he had that journey back. And then he arrived, and we're continuing his arrival. Who's there to meet him? And why did we go from Navadvip to Dwarka? Well, first of all, it's the continuation of our study of Srimad Bhagavatam. And secondly, without understanding the glory of 3, 5, 7, 8, it's not possible to understand the glory of 10, right? Just like some color is darker than another color. Otherwise, it's not possible to understand it alone. So, after all this glorious description that you'll be hearing about Dwarka, which is like 3 in comparison to 3 zillion of Vrindavan, we have to understand 3 first. You know the example of the sugar and the salt? Yes, most of you know, half of you know it. So if you have an ounce of sugar and an ounce of salt, probably whatever you're tasting will be sweet. And if you have an ounce of salt and 10 ounces of sugar, it's going to be more sweet. And if you have an ounce of salt and 1,000,000 pounds of sugar, well, in the beginning you'll be tasting the salt and the sugar. Then you'll be tasting less salt and more sugar. And finally, you won't get the taste of salt at all. So the salt represents opulence. Like in Vaikuntha, there's no sugar. In Dwarka, there's a little bit of sugar. In Mathura, there's a little more sugar. And in Vrindavan, there's so much sugar that you can't taste the opulence, even though the opulence is greater. So I made a mistake in the analogy. It's the amount of salt does not remain the same. There's it goes from an ounce of salt to a pound of salt. But then when you have 1,000,000 pounds of sugar, then even that increased amount of salt is not tasted. So, okay. So there's so much more opulence in Vrindavan than there is of Dwarka, but if we don't understand Dwarka a little bit, then we can't imagine the opulence of Vrindavan. So when I read the first verse last time we ended, just before Navadvip, we ended with there were lots of prostitutes lining the streets. They were also devotees, and prostitutes are needed so that if a man knows there's a society of prostitutes, then if I need an extra boost in my sense gratification, I won't have to go into society, but I know there's a specific place. And now, who's speaking here? I think it's Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages of Naimisharanya. And he's saying, expert dramatists. So when Krishna is entering the city, there are dramatists doing their dramas, artists, dancers, singers, historians, all on the way. Genealogists, learned speakers, they all gave their respective contributions. So that as Krishna is passing by the road, he's seeing a drama, he's listening to a song, listening to a speaker. Thus they proceeded on and on. And all of their contributions were in relation to the superhuman activities of Krishna. Somebody's speaking about him, somebody's dancing about him, somebody's holding a drama about him. So I want to read the purport here, though we don't usually read purports. It appears that 5,000 years ago, the society also needed the services of dramatists, artists, singers, etc., historians, genealogists. What exactly is a genealogist? Family lineages, somebody who knows them. Family tree. Public speakers, etc. Dancers, singers, dramatic artists, mostly hailed from the Sudra community. Whereas the learned historians, genealogists, public speakers hailed from the Brahmin community. All of them belonged to a particular caste, and they became so trained in their respective their families trained them. But it was all in relation to Krishna. They would only dwell on Krishna's superhuman pastimes. But the pastimes were not necessarily in chronological order. It just, this happened, and Krishna ate earth, and Krishna got married, and Krishna danced with the gopis. Different universes. Different ages, different times, different planets. So there's really no context for chronological order. Then Prabhupada comments, the modern historians cannot catch up the link, why it's not chronological. And thus they unauthoritatively remark that the Puranas are imaginative stories only. So even 100 years ago in India, all dramatic performances were centered around the superhuman activities of Krishna. And people would be entertained by that, and at the same time advance in their sukritis and sanskars. But alas, nowadays, it's not so. It's like, you're just watching Gurudev's video on the YouTube, and all of a sudden some ghastly, monstrous thing comes online. So Krishna, the personality of Godhead, approached them and offered due honor and respect to each and every one, friends, relatives, citizens, and others who came to receive and welcome him. He wasn't like a puffed up politician. He loved and respected and embraced everybody. But according to the relationship, he greeted them differently. Sometimes he bowed his head, sometimes he embraced, sometimes he shook hands, looking, smiling, giving assurance, awarding benedictions. Even to the lowest rank, he gave attention. Then he personally entered the city, accompanied by elderly relatives and invalid brahmanas with their wives. All offered benedictions and singing the glories of the Lord. So he also received benedictions from elderly relatives and invalid brahmanas and their wives. And so he received their blessings. Because Krishna wasn't a brahmana, he was a kshatriya, so he had to get blessings from the brahmanas. When he passed over the public roads, all the ladies from respectable families of Dwarka went up to the roofs of their palaces just to have a look. They consider this to be the greatest festival. The inhabitants of Dwarka were regularly accustomed to look upon the reservoir of all beauty. Nikunja, is it possible for you to come over here? I feel like a pendulum. Thank you. And even though they kept looking at him, they were never satisfied. Okay, I looked enough. The more they looked, the more they wanted to look. Why? Let's describe his. Let's hear from Sutta Goswami describing his body. His chest is the abode of the goddess of fortune. His moon-like face is the drinking vessel for eyes which hanker after all that is beautiful. Is it possible for you also to come here? Thanks. I'm getting too old for the pendulum. His lotus feet are the refuge of pure devotees who never talk or sing. Now that's interesting. You want to try that? Like during the day, you feel like talking about something else or complaining about something else. But instead, say something about Krishna and see what happens. His arms are the resting place for the administrative demigods. And his lotus feet are the refuge of pure devotees who never talk or sing about anything else except him. Or you can go up to somebody, one of your devotees, and say, can I share a verse that I learned today with you? Like me and Vasanti would say, we just learned a verse about Navadvip and Vrindavan. And that would be, Araditam Navavanam Prajakananam Te Naraditam Navavanam Praja Eva Dore Aradito Dvijasuto Praj Nagaraste Naradito Dvijasuto Nata Eva Krishna. So that means that if somebody worships Navadvip, he's worshipping Vrindavan. And if somebody doesn't worship Navadvip, then Braj is far away. If somebody worships the master of Navadvip, that is Dvija Sutta, the son of the Brahmana, that is Mahaprabhu, then he's worshipping Krishna. If he doesn't, then Krishna is far away. And he'll never reach Krishna either. If he worships Krishna for millions of years, he'll never reach him. I mean, if he's offensive. But if he worships Navadvip, then he can easily attain Krishna. After entering the house of his father, he was embraced by the mothers present. And the Lord offered his obeisances unto them by placing his head at the feet of his mothers, who are embracing him. The mothers were headed by, who's the chief mother there? Right, Devaki. The mothers, just like in Vrindavan, he has a real mother, who, Yashoda, and the other mothers are like mothers. The mothers, after embracing their son, Shishi Radharaman Bihari Ji Ki Jai, sat him on their laps. Due to pure affection, milk sprang from their breasts. They were overwhelmed with delight, and milk sprang from their breasts. He's already 20 years old, so something like that, teenager. They were overwhelmed with delight, and the tears from their eyes wetted the Lord.
Can you
Probably
help?
not.
Can you help me understand?
Probably not.
No, this one, I'm actually very confident. Because sometimes Srila Prabhupada refers to Yasoda Mai as Krishna's foster mom. Can you explain why he does this?
Yes. So Pariksit is in the mood of in the beginning of the discussion, he's thinking himself a resident of Dwarka. So in order to bring him in and be interested to keep listening, Sukadeva Goswami wants Pariksit Maharaj to feel like Krishna's my relative. Later on, a lot later on, like in the 10th canto, he starts that Krishna is really the son of Nanda. By that verse, was it verse 5? That he held a big, it's not a good sound. He held a big festival for the birth of his son. Now it starts getting more clear. And then, that's early in the 10th canto. And then we come to Gopi Geet, where it's described how Braj is very wonderful and fully decorated by the goddess of fortune. There the gopis say, ever since Krishna took his birth in the land of Braj, so the gopis are authorities. So he starts out, so similarly, Prabhupada was dealing with not people from Dwarka, but people from hell. He was dealing with animals, two-legged animals, that is all of us. So therefore he'll say something like, here, the mothers were headed by Devaki, his real mother. And then in the Nectar of Devotion, he'll call Mother Yasoda his foster mother. Later on, he explains the reality. Is that how? Okay. Hare Krishna. What's your name? Good, just testing. Das, Anudas, Anudas, servant of the servant. Okay. Thereafter, the Lord entered his palaces. He entered many palaces at the same time, which were perfect to the fullest extent. Like here he says they were perfect to the fullest extent. And later, or in different places you find, it's not perfect. But, well, to correct myself, perfect means purnam, perfect. But there's perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. So in Dwarka, Krishna's perfect, in Mathura he's more perfect, and in Vrindavan he's most perfect. So Purnam, Purnatar, and Purnatam, like that. The queens of Krishna rejoiced within their minds, because now he's entering all the queens' palaces. They rejoiced within their minds to see their husband home after such a long period abroad. Hastinapur was abroad. The queens got up at once from their seats and meditations. As was socially customary, they covered their faces shyly and looked about coyly. I'm just going to read a little bit of Prabhupada's purport. As mentioned above, the Lord entered his home palaces, occupied by his 16,108 queens. That means that's how many palaces he had. So he expanded himself to enter each palace simultaneously. And Prabhupada mentioned that all the queens, because he could be always with each one, they all thought that he was henpecked by them. Sometimes not, but mostly. Sometimes there are, dramas. Like, who's a drama queen? Satyabhama. Well, no, I mean in the real world. This is the fake world. So, this means that the Lord at once expanded himself in as many plenary expansions as there were queens and palaces, and entered each and every one simultaneously and separately. Here we really are dealing with plenary portions, whereas in Braj, in Vrindavan, when Krishna's dancing with billions of gopis at the same time, it's not because he expanded into plenary portions. They're all the original Krishna. And Krishna's dancing so fast that he seemed like a firebrand. If you take a torch and you go like that very quickly, it's one torch, but it looks like it's everywhere all at once. But here, it's all different plenary expansions. Here is another manifestation of the feature of Krishna's internal potency, headed by, yes, Srimati Radhika. He can expand himself in as many forms of spiritual identity as he desires, even though he is one without a second. It is confirmed by the Shruti mantras that the Absolute is one alone. Does anybody know the Sanskrit name? Advaya Gyan Padatattva. He's the one without a second. Is there anybody else besides him? No. Well, you can say, well, Radharani is even standing next to him. But she's no one but Krishna. And yet he becomes many as soon as he desires. These manifold expansions are manifested as plenary and separated portions. The separated portions are representations of his energy, and the plenary portions are representations of himself, but not complete. And because he can do so, he's also known as Yogeshvara. So here he's known as Yogeshvara because he can expand. But the gopis call him Yogeshvara because he can run fast. They don't want to give him any opulence credit. I'm jumping in the purport. According to Jagyavalka, and according to his religious injunctions, a woman whose husband is away from home should not take part in any social functions. She should not decorate her body. She should not laugh. Like that. Sometimes if it gets uncontrollable, she can go like that, like Draupadi. And she should not go to any relative's house in any circumstance. This is the vow of the ladies whose husbands are away from home. Who deviated from that? Well, yeah, she did deviate, didn't she? But he wasn't away from home. He was in the home, and she left. But who deviated from that is Rohini, because her husband was in jail, Vasudev. But it was Krishna's birth, so she got all decorated and ran to the place. So this is a vow of the ladies whose husbands are away from home. At the same time, it is also enjoined that a wife should never present herself before her husband in an unclean state. She must decorate herself in front of him. In a happy and joyous mood. The queens of Lord Krishna were all in meditation, thinking of the Lord's absence, and were always meditating on him. They cannot live for a moment without him. But so what's the difference between them and the gopis, or Krishna's mother Yasoda?
Their love is split.
No, in terms of feeling separation. That's true. And you're on the path to the answer. The Lord's devotees cannot live for a moment. Shri Shri Radharaman, Bihari Ji Ki Jai. The Lord's devotees cannot live for a moment without meditating on him. And what to speak of the queens, who are goddesses of fortune, incarnated as queens in Krishna's pastimes. It's that because their love is split, the intensity and excruciatingness of the feelings of separation are much less. If you will read in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita that Krishna never went back to Vrindavan, and his queens and Uddhav and Narada were discussing whether he's a nice person or not. Some said he was nice, some said he was cruel. Balaram was one that said he was cruel. So finally he started talking. He said, not only talking, he started crying. You know why I don't go there? Because I wouldn't be able to make them happy. Because if I go there, they're going to think, well, he's just going to leave again. And they're going to go into excruciating pain and faint. and weep piteously, roll on the ground, he's not going to make them happy. Like a person who has a hot pan, you know, a hot pan that's on the stove, and if you want to cool it off a bit, so you throw a drop of cold water on it, the cold water will it'll in a second it'll burn. So it doesn't pacify the hot pot. So then everybody said to Krishna in Dwarka, well, you know, you're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You could easily change any situation or any person at your will. So why don't you just change that fact that they're going to feel pain when you go? Why don't you just go? And he said, no, that's the one thing that I cannot change. I can't control. They're out of my control. And I'm controlled by them. If I thought that they want me to come now, I would leave you all in a second. But they don't want that. So it's very elaborately explained. Besides, if I could change them, they would be somebody else. They wouldn't be the great personalities that they are. I don't know what they would become. And then even, we know that Devaki doesn't want Krishna to go back to Vrindavan, right? Because if you're someplace, and then you go for a job, you're definitely going to come back when the job is over. But they thought if he goes to Vrindavan, he's not going for a job. He probably won't come back. So they didn't want him to go. And he didn't go. But here in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Devaki is explaining to one of the people that I just mentioned how she knows that, maybe it was Padmavati, the wife of Ugrasen, that she knows that Yasoda is 1,000,000 times greater than her, that her love for Krishna is 1,000,000 times greater. And she explained how I wanted a son like you, a son like you, when Lord Vishnu said, what do you want? But Mother Yasoda and Nanda, they prayed, let us have Vatsalya Bhav for you. In other words, let us really think that you're our dependent son and we're your protected parents. Make sense? Okay. I didn't wait to hear the answer. Okay. So therefore, as soon as the queens saw from a distance their husband, who was away from home for a long period due to the battle of Kurukshetra, they all arose from the slumber of meditation and prepared to receive their most beloved. The insuperable ecstasy was so strong that the queens, who were shy, first embraced the Lord in the innermost recesses of their hearts. Then they embraced him visually. And then they sent their sons to embrace him. Visually means by looking and thinking. And then they sent their sons to embrace him, which is equal to personal embracing. But, O chief amongst the Bhrigus, who is he speaking to? Who's being spoken to? I also think it's Shonaka Rishi. It doesn't say who's speaking for a long time. Yes, it's the beginning of the chapter has it. Sutta Goswami said, yeah, Sri Sutta Vacha. So, the insuperable ecstasy was so strong that the queens who were shy first embraced him in their hearts, and then visually as they looked at him, and then they sent their sons. O chief amongst the Brigus, what's his name? Shonaka. Though they tried to restrain their feelings, they inadvertently shed tears. The Lord Krishna was constantly by their sides, as well as exclusively alone. His feet appeared to them to be newer and newer, but not to the extent that the gopis see him as newer and newer. The goddesses of fortune, although by nature always restless and moving, could not quit the Lord's feet. So what woman can be attached? What woman can be detached from those feet, having once taken shelter of them? The Lord was pacified. Am I in the right place? Yep. The Lord was pacified after killing all those demoniac kings who were burdensome to the earth. They were puffed up with their military strength, their horses, elephants, chariots, infantry, and so on, like modern times. He himself was not a party in the fight. He simply created hostility between the two powerful administrators, and they fought amongst themselves. This is very interesting, isn't it? That he's the one who created the enmity. Why would he want to do that? Let's find out. And they fought amongst themselves. He was like the wind, which causes friction between the bamboos as they banged against each other. And thus, when there's friction in the trees, sometimes a fire may start just of its own. You know, we always hear that, like if somebody's in the forest, he can go like this. The Lord is the genuine proprietor and enjoyer of everything manifested in his creation. So he's the real enjoyer of everything that we do. If we think, yeah, that was pretty far out what I just did, or what me and my god brothers just manifested here at such and such a festival. Nope, it's Krishna who's the enjoyer and the owner. But the living entities become a false enjoyer under the dictates of the modes of nature. Puffed up by such a false sense of becoming God, the deluded living entities increase the material strength by so many activities and thus become a burden on the earth. This is talking about materialists. But we can see how it can apply to us. The state of affairs is called Dharmasya Glani. There's a nice verse about that. Do you know it? What? Can you take the mic? Is it available? Yeah.
Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Whenever and wherever
Wait,
there is
that's
a
only half of it. Abhutanam dharmasya tadatmanam shrijamyaha. Go ahead.
whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious principles, O Arjuna, I descend to that place
By my,
by my internal potency.
good. Or misuse. Dharmasya glani means misuse of the energy of the human being. When such misuse is prominent, the saner living beings become perturbed by the awkward situation created by the vicious administrators who are simply burdens of the earth. Yesterday I was just imagining all the things they could become in their next life. For how many lives? Vicious administrators who are simply burdens on the earth, and the Lord appears by the internal potency just to save the saner section. That's an alliteration. Just to save the saner section. And to alleviate the burden. He does not favor either of the unwanted administrators, but by potential power, his potential power, he creates hostility between such unwanted administrators, as the air creates fire in the forest by the friction of the bamboos. The fire in the forest takes place automatically by the force of the air, and similarly the hostility between different groups of politicians take place by the unseen design of the Lord. So all these news things, it's all the unforeseen design of the Lord. The unwanted administrators, puffed up by false power and military strength, thus become engaged in fighting amongst themselves over ideological conflicts, and so exhaust themselves of all powers. The history of the world reflects this factual will of the Lord, and it will continue to be enacted till the living entities are attached to the service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, this fact is very vividly described. Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Does anybody know it? The diluting energy is my potency, and thus it is not possible to be independent for the dependent living entities. He's saying that the dependent living entities cannot supersede the powerful material energy. This material energy of mine, does anybody know the Sanskrit and translation? This diluting energy of mine is very difficult to overcome, O Arjun. But one who takes shelter of me can easily overcome it. Did I get it right? What is it? Can you say it? You have it? Yep, that's it.
Daivihi esha guna mai mama maya dharatyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it.
Easily. On one side, impossible, the other side, by surrender, easily. So that's interesting to know. Krishna created the enmity. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, appeared on this planet by his internal potency. He needs Radharani's help for everything. And engaged himself among competent women as if he were engaged in mundane affairs. Although, we're going to end here. When I saw that, as I was breezing through the pages, I saw this verse and I thought, yeah, that's a good place to end. Although the queen's beautiful smiles and furtive glances were all spotless and exciting, and although they could conquer Cupid himself by making him give up his bow in frustration, and although even the tolerant Shiva could fall victim to them Still, despite all their magical feats and attractions, they could not agitate the senses of the Lord. Big difference in Vrindavan. I'll just jump to the middle of the. Well, Prabhupada's explaining how. Well, in that way, let's see. The male is searching for a mate to his liking, and a female is looking after a suitable male. Sometimes in Kartik time, Gurudev would say, don't turn this Kartik into a mela where everybody's looking for somebody. That is the way of material stimulus. And as soon as the male is combined with the female, the material bondage of the living being is at once tightly interlocked by sex relation. And as a result of this, both of them, they get attracted to a sweet home, to their motherland, to bodily offspring, to society, friendship, accumulation of wealth, which are all full of miseries. But when Krishna sees the gopis or thinks of them, he goes mad. So that's what we want. We want to become servants of those who make God, the control of everything, go mad and not be able to control themselves. But we have to give up a lot. How much do we have to give up? Everything. Okay, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sutta Goswami ki jai, the sages of Naimishranya ki jai, Krishna and his queens ki jai, top of everything, Gopis ki jai, Srimati Radhika ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Gaura Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Gaura Hari Bo. Go Premanandi, Vanchikovaturubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namah. Ma Prasade Govinde, Nama